Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining the Survey and Spatial webinar today that's being hosted by Andy Rolston. Andy is a former rugby player and coach, and he's experienced many different coaching and leadership methodologies, but one in particular shifted his perspective. He was introverted and didn't know how to spark a conversation with a stranger. At 19, he read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It inspired a passion for leadership and personal growth, similar to the one he always had while playing rugby. Today, Andy combines that passion for sport and personal development as a leadership coach. He helps leaders understand the individual strengths of their team and how to bond everyone on that team. Every team starts as individuals. Only the best teams become one. Today, he applies leadership philosophies and his own coaching experiences to transform relationships and help individuals recognize their impact on each other and their team's success. So, Andy, I'll now hand over to you.
Lovely. Thank you, Jenny. Well, good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. And before I start, I just want to start with a question or a thought, really. And it's this: do you recall a time when your parents would tell you to stay away from certain people because they were a bad influence? Or maybe not to go to certain places in order to avoid potential problems? You see, the places we go and the things that we do and the people in our lives influence who we are. They influence what we do and the results that we get. So things happen daily that have some level of influence on us. Now, along with those actions and words influencing us, each of us possess that same power to influence others through our actions and our words. Now, one very simple form of influence is simply a smile. You know, when we walk past someone in the street and we smile, they smile back, right? Well, they should. Most of them do anyway. Or maybe we say hi to someone. That influences them to say hi back. Or maybe if we've had a crossword with someone, that generally inspires a hostile response. Or maybe you're driving down the highway and you honk at someone, that elicits a response back, doesn't it? So no matter what situation we are in our lives, influence is at play at every point in every part of our lives every single day. As I said, I'm so excited to be here, and this is one of the most fascinating subjects, and I just love this thought about having impact and have influence, because I've seen it have so much of an impact in my own life, and I've seen so many people grow and so many changes and so many people that I've influenced through putting some of these concepts and practicing out this thought of a leader as influence. So when Jane and Jenny asked me to speak this morning, what I said to them is I would give you two things, or made two promises really. The first one is that I'm going to give you something that you can apply to your life right now, right away. And I've had the privilege of sharing with you one of the greatest skills that's helped me, as I've mentioned, grow as an individual. So what I want to do today is when you walk away from this webinar, you're going to have something that you can apply to your life right now in your workplace or at home. And I can guarantee that it will change the way that you do things. The second thing I promised, Jenny, was that not only going to give you something you can use right away, but if you like what you hear today, I'm going to give you the opportunity to continue further. So at the end of this webinar, what I'm going to do is just give you a survey link. I think Jenny's going to send out a survey link. It's just one question. It's really simple, and it's just really going to ask if you found this information useful and whether you think it would be beneficial to you or your organization. And if so, I just want you to fill that out. It's really just a yes or no answer, and then I'll be able to maybe touch base later and we can see how we can do something to continue to move forward with you. You see, a lot of the things I'm going to share with you today, I'm sure you've already heard before. I know a lot of things I've heard before as well. But you see, those are the most dangerous words on the planet. Oh, I've heard that before. So today as I talk, what I want you to do, or as I encourage you to do, is if you hear something that you've heard before, don't ask yourself, oh, I've heard that before, and then switch off. But say to yourself, how well do I actually do that? Because the biggest gap in most of our lives is between what we know and what we actually do. So who do we influence? You know, I'm part of an organization called the Maxwell Leadership Team, and in this team, we define leadership like this. Leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. Now, I'm going to repeat that saying quite a few times in this webinar. And I guess if you get nothing out of this webinar, but the fact that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Now, that's kind of contrary to what tradition says or what popular belief is, because if we look at the Webster Dictionary, they define leadership as this. Leadership is a position, it's a place, it's an office or a title of leadership. And so for the most part, the majority of people that I speak to don't actually believe they're leaders unless they have a title or position. But you see, the way that we define leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. Now, John Maxwell, who wrote the book that this presentation is kind of based on, has been teaching about leadership, influence, and personal development for over 40 years now. He's such a prolific author that has written well over 80 books, and many of them bestsellers. In fact, he's one of only 5 authors worldwide to have 5 of his books go platinum. So he's had a massive impact on the lives of so many people, and myself has been one of them. So right now, I just want you to think about one person who's had the greatest influence on your life. The one person that's made the greatest impact, that's helped you go further or maybe help you go faster. So hopefully you got that person in mind. I would, unfortunately, I can't ask you to raise your hand because we can't do that on this platform, but I'm assuming you've got that person in your mind. Now, how many of you would say that that was your mother or your father? Or maybe it was a brother or sister? Or how many of you that was maybe a teacher? Here's the next thing. How many of you would say that that person held a title or position that you work for specifically? You see, in every single room that I speak to, it's very rare that a hand goes up for that last one. There's always maybe 1 or 2, but typically a person that didn't have a title or position is the one that had influence over you. You see, it's the mother at home, or it's your neighbor next door, it's your teacher, maybe it's your friend's parents or something like that. You see, it's the friends that we interact with. It's influence, nothing more and nothing less. So today what I want to do is remove from your mind, in the short period of time that we have together, that influence comes from a title. So let me explain it this way. As we take a deeper dive into this, I want to explain to you what we call the leadership compass. Now, if you're taking notes and you've got a piece of paper, what I'd like to do is grab a blank sheet of paper, and I want you to draw a big circle on it, or a big compass, and label it north, south, east, and west. Now, once you've drawn that circle, leave enough space in there for you to be able to write inside. We're going to do some lines. And so just going to explain how this works. So right in the very center of that big circle, what I also want you to do is just place a dot in the very center. Now, that dot is what we call self-leadership. Self-leadership, this is where it all begins. And so the first question that you have to ask yourself is this: would I follow? Now, if there's not a resounding yes to that question, then I think we've got some serious work to do, because we must always work first and hardest on ourselves before we can influence anybody else. You see, if we can't lead ourselves well, then how can we expect to lead anybody else? And it's really simple. It starts with things like, excuse me, I've got a thing that's popped up on my screen. It starts with simple things like a smile. And when you smile at people, we've talked about, they smile back, don't they? Or you show up on time. You can show up on time with a good attitude. And we know that attitudes can shift other people, right? Attitudes are contagious. So you see, we must be able to lead ourselves first before we can lead anybody else. So leadership, that's where we must start first. Now let's get back to the compass. I want you to draw a line from the dot straight down to south. Now this is what we call positional leadership. Now this is the lowest form of leadership. Now you might be thinking, how could this be the lowest form of leadership? But you see, at this level, people will only follow you because they have to, not because they want to. You see, if you take away their paycheck or their job, or you let them clock out at the end of the day, once they've gone out the door, your influence goes from a 8 to a 2 in a heartbeat. Why is that? Well, because at this level, you only have their paycheck to hang over their head. See, people only follow you because they have to, not because they want to. So next I want you to draw a line starting across from east to west. Now this is what we call peer leadership. Now, this level is a lot higher, obviously. And why is that? Well, because at this level, people will follow you because they want to, not because they have to. And that's why it's a higher level. You see, it takes influence to get them to follow you. Now, at this level, we commonly we miss something that's really important. And some people think, now, why would I do anything to develop the relationship with my peers? I mean, aren't we in competition together? No, not at all. You see, here's the question I ask every one of my coaching clients. You see, if you got promoted tomorrow, how would your peers accept you? Who will follow you and who won't? So, you see, every single day you need to be looking for how you can begin to influence and develop the relationships with your peers. So peer leadership, that's the line across from east to west. Now, lastly, if we draw a line from the dot to north, this is what we call leading up or influencing the influencers. Now, this is the highest level of leadership because at this level, there's no reason whatsoever for people to follow you. You have to have a track record. You have to have proven reliability that you're going to do what you say you will do. And usually you've got some results behind you. There's a consistency there. But when you begin to influence the influencers, this is when you really begin to make a difference in people's lives. So here's what you have to understand about the compass. You see, every single room that you walk into, you are somewhere inside this compass. And you have to identify how to influence those above you, below you, beside you, and yourself. But it always starts with you. It always starts with you. See, influence is not about position. And we have to understand that leadership and influence, leadership is about people. Leadership is about people, not about position. So this is what I want to do today, is remove from your mind that leadership is anything other than influence. It's influence, nothing more and nothing less. Now, as I said, a lot of people think that influence is only about the title or position. They think, now when I get to the top, I'll be able to influence people. Or when I get to the top, I'll learn how to lead. But you see, this is where we screw things up. Because when we get to the top and we get that position, it's way too late to start to learn how to lead or how to influence others so they will follow you. You see, when we get the opportunity to lead, we have a really small window to showcase our influence. And that's all it is, really. When you get the position, it's just an opportunity to showcase your influence. So if you're a good leader, your influence will expand. And if you're a bad leader, your influence will shrink. So if you understand the fundamentals of influence, your leadership will stand out. Well, your leadership will also stand out if you stink too, but obviously not in a good way. So all position really is an opportunity to showcase your influence. It buys you a very small window of time. And so the time to lead, to develop your influence skills, isn't when you get the position. The time to learn is now. So what I want you to do today is mark the day that you shift gears in your life, that you're going to become a leader that leads by influence, and that you're going to be the best leader that you can be. Because I can assure you, the greater the leader you become, the greater income that you're going to have. How many in the room would like more income or more profit in their business? I'm guessing everybody, right? Well, that's going to be based on your ability to increase your leadership ability. Now, if you doubt the importance of what influence does, I want you to think about what you want to achieve in life. What are some of your key goals or your objectives? And then think about who can help you achieve those goals. Think about who could get in the way. How's it going to affect the other people in your life? Who is impacted by the success or failure of your goal? Who's going to look after the kids if you spend all your time working on this? You see, as soon as you start thinking about everything you do, you'll soon realize that in some way, other people are instrumental in how you live your life. To be successful, we need to lead, and to lead, we need influence. See, 90% of everything we want to be, do, or have in life is with or through other people. Would you all agree with that? Almost everything we want to become or accomplish in life is with or through other people. So our ability to influence is the most important skill that we can master. Did you know that you all have a platform? Even if you don't think you do, you all have this social media platform. You all have influence with others. You have people in your life that look up to you in certain situations. They follow your leadership, they follow your voice, they follow your words. You see, we have the ability to shape the way other people think, feel, or respond to life through our communication with them. We're all given this platform. People give you permission to speak into your life, into their life. You influence more people than you realize. And sociologists tell us that most people in their lifetime will influence about 10,000 other people. 10,000 people. And that's not people that are in sales or positions like that. That's just the average person. In other words, every one of us, even if we're shy or introverted, we're influencing others. I want you to think about that. The average person will unintentionally influence 10,000 people in their lifetime. That's roughly about 4 people a day. So whether you know it or not, you are influencing people right now. You have people in your life that look up to you. So the decision you must make is whether your influence will be positive or whether it will be negative. How many people could you impact if you started to use your influence on purpose? Let me ask you this. Has there ever been a bad rumor that spread through your company or your business? Well, maybe not your company, but maybe somewhere where you worked in the past or a company you know. A bad rumor is spread out. I think we all know companies, or we've seen on TV where rumors are spread and gone through the company. Well, here's what I know about rumors is I know that the CEO of that company didn't wake up one morning saying, you know what, today would be a great day to joke around with the staff and start a negative rumor. I think I'll do that so I can decrease productivity. That's what I'm going to put on my agenda today. Now, let me ask you this. What happened because of this bad rumor? You see, likely it was because of miscommunication. Someone was upset. Maybe someone was put aside for a promotion. And what happens is the lower levels in the organization begin the old Chinese whispers, with one person sharing with the next, and we get this kind of underground world of negativity and gossip. Now, what this underground world of negativity is, I think it has a certain smell to it, a bit like a skunk smell, and it gets into absolutely everything and takes a really long time to go away. You see, even innocent gossip about co-workers is really a waste of time. It might be about why someone is single, or maybe why someone got a promotion instead of someone else, or why someone's getting let go. It doesn't really matter what it is. You see, what starts off as an offhand remark or pure speculation gets repeated, and the next thing, we've got a potential personal grievance suit on our hands. So what I want you to do now is just imagine that you're sitting outside on a warm summer's evening. I know it's overcast here in Auckland, but pretend it's still summer. And you get this whiff of this familiar smell, this pungent odor that is so unmistakable as the perfume of a skunk. Now, I'm not sure if any of you have experienced what that is, but I lived in Canada for a few years when I was coaching rugby, and I can tell you, the skunks, you can smell them from a mile away, and they smell like burnt rubber. It's just an absolute awful smell. Anyway, this smell just keeps getting stronger and stronger on the deck until you're forced inside. So you run around the house, you close all the windows, but you just can't seem to get that smell out completely. It just seems to find its way in through all the cracks or the windows. Anyway, you go to bed, you go to sleep, and you're hoping that the stench is gone by the morning. So the next day you throw open the windows only to discover that it's still there. But it's not as strong as it was before, but it's still there just the same. And as you go out the door, you get in your car, you notice the smell is even stronger. Then you see your next door neighbor, and he begins to tell you what happened. He says, look, you wouldn't believe it. My dog came around the corner last night and surprised a family of skunks, and it sprayed him. And now it's infected the whole neighborhood. He said, I even had to throw away all my clothes because no amount of tomato juice could remove the smell, or from the puppy. You see, that's how rumors and gossip influence in a negative way. So what I want to do is give you a better understanding of what influence is, because now I want to talk to you about how to influence, because how you influence determines how far, how many, and how long you will actually lead. So how do you influence? You'll see on the screen there's some methods of influence here. I'm just going to talk to you about one of those ways today. There are lots of ways that I could talk to you about influence, but I just want to focus on one. Now, the most common one that I see inside the workplace is by intimidation. This is the my way or the highway philosophy of leadership. Now, this might have worked, 20 or 30 years ago. Well, I actually don't think it worked back then, but it seemed to be used a lot more. And it even works less effectively now. You see, we live in a culture where that doesn't go over very well. And at the moment, we're living in this great resignation period, they tell us. So people are not going to tolerate this sort of mentality very long. People will leave the organization. And the other thing is it doesn't get you the results that you want in the long run. Now, as I was thinking about this my way or the highway philosophy, it really only does two things. The first thing that the my way highway philosophy does is it increases useless activity and decreases creativity. It increases useless activity and it decreases creativity. So what do I mean by this? Well, it looks like this. See, I come into the office one day and I've got a great idea that I think is going to add value to the organization. So I come to you, I bring my idea and say, look, I've got this great idea. I think we could, really benefit from this. And you go, nope, we don't do it that way. We've always done it this way. That's okay. I'm not put off. I go back to work, and then a couple of days later, I come up with another idea. So I bring that idea to you. And I go, hey, boss, I've got some more thoughts. I've got some ideas that I think we could really benefit from. And then you go, nope, look, it's my way or the highway. You see, when my leader says that to me, well, he may not say those so many words, but what happens? You see, what happens is I begin to stop bringing ideas around again. Now what do I have to do? I have to all of a sudden look busy on the job. I have to increase my useless activity. You know what I'm talking about, right? How many of you know someone that works harder at looking busy on the job than actually doing the job? We all know that person, right? They walk around with a clipboard, they've got their cell phone, they stare at the screen, and they're like doing nothing. They're working harder to look busy on the job than actually doing anything on the job. And it's really hard work looking busy. So I had a Facebook connection with an associate. And I say associate because they weren't really my friend. But anyway, I saw this post and this is what he literally typed out. He goes, man, it's hard to look busy on the job today. And sure enough, this thread went crazy. I mean, there was comment after comment. I thought, what on earth are these guys commenting about? So as I went back and looked at the thread, people were telling this associate how to look busy on the job. I mean, all kinds of stuff like kick the cord out of the computer or put your headset on and pretend you're talking to customers. Go and read a book inside the toilet. It was like tip after tip on how to look busy on the job. Now, what is that saying? Well, people are disengaged because of the my way or highway philosophy. If you want more out of your people, if you want to engage your people more, how you lead will determine how far and how long you will lead. So why do I influence? See, one thing to remember is why you do something will ultimately determine your level of influence with others. See, right motives are crucial to people because leadership functions on the basis of trust. And without trust, influence is nothing more than coercion or manipulation. You see, most leaders realize that if they could just get another 10% out of everybody in the team, then it adds up to far more than they can contribute themselves. See, leadership is influence. Leadership is results through others. But the reason influence is such a skill is it's much more complicated than just saying, okay, I think I'll get more out of others. You can't just decide and then dictate influence. You see, when there is trust, the team knows that they are there for each other and they have the shared interest on the team. Marcus Buckingham, co-author of Now Discover Your Strengths, says this, that establishing trust is the one thing that changes everything in both business and in life. And his best-selling book, The Speed of Trust, Stephen M. Covey says this, trust is the very basis of the new global economy. He goes on to say that trust and speed at which is established with clients and employees is the essential ingredient for any high-performance, successful organization, from business leaders and public figures to everyday person like you and I. In any arena, trust affects our every transaction and relationship from the most personal to the broadest, most indirect interaction. The world is changing very fast. Big will not beat small anymore. It will be the fast beating the slow. Let me give you an example about this. See, a New Zealand manufacturer was being squeezed by imports, particularly from China. So when management investigated, they discovered that a typical Chinese factory could turn out about 40% more products per employee than their own firm. So management made several attempts to persuade their factory workers that they needed to lift their game up, that they would keep losing business to their Chinese competitors if they didn't increase their output. But you see, the workers didn't believe them. They felt they were working as hard as they possibly could. They didn't think they could produce anymore. They also thought that the managers were not really interested in the company's viability, but maybe just creating bigger bonuses for themselves. Now, what do you think undermined the ability of their managers to convince the co-workers that it was in their best interest to work harder? Well, lack of trust, of course. You see, without trust, any attempts to influence others just comes across as manipulation. See, we all know there are too many people out there who want to be leaders for only the perks without paying the price of leadership. We see this in politics, we see this in business, and we even see it in some families. You see, ultimately, people will likely follow and be loyal to leaders who can correctly demonstrate the answer to these three questions. Do you care about me? Can you help me? And can I trust you? Do you care about me? Can you help me? And can I trust you? So how do you increase your influence? You see, now that we know the value of having influence, how do you go about increasing that influence? Now, we know you already have influence. The question is it going to be positive or is it going to be negative? So we have the opportunity to increase our influence and impact with others with every interaction we have with them. So if we want to increase our influence with others, we first need to understand that influence comes from adding value to people. What do I mean by adding value? Well, that could be lots of things. It could be helping them in some way with their goals or their dreams. Maybe it's helping them see themselves in a better light, helping them with their self-esteem. You see, if we want to increase our influence with others, the first thing we need to do is see other people as valuable. Kind of like putting a 10 on their forehead and then helping them see that too. You see, almost half a century ago, author Eric Hoffer wrote this: no matter what our achievements might be, we think well of ourselves only in rare moments. We need people to be a witness against our inner judge who keeps book on our shortcomings and transgressions. We need people to convince us that we are not as bad as we think we are. Now, I think this is true as today as it was when it was written all those years ago, wouldn't you say? Also think we live in an age that, because of social media and poor parenting advice and practices, we have an entire generation that has grown up with lower self-esteem than previous generations. You see, Facebook and Instagram, other social media sites, they all show us what a great life everybody else is having. It's like their highlight reel. Everyone has it all figured out except us, it seems. And studies have shown that the more time a person spends on social media, the more likely they are to be dissatisfied with their life and maybe even depressed. So how do we actually change that? Well, we change that by making a real connection with people. We change that by listening and understanding and looking for the gold that lies within. See, at one time, Andrew Carnegie was the wealthiest man in America. I'm not sure if you guys know who he is or heard his story. It's a fantastic story and it's worth reading if you get the chance. You see, he came to America from Scotland when he was just a small boy, worked a variety of jobs, and eventually ended up with the largest steel manufacturer in the United States. And at one time, he had 43 millionaires working for him. Now, in those days, a millionaire was a pretty rare person. And conservatively speaking, in today's world, $1 million would be the equivalent to about $20 million. So one day, a reporter asked Carnegie how he had hired 43 millionaires. Carnegie responded that those men were not millionaires when they started working for me. They had become millionaires as a result. So the reporter's next question was, so how did you develop these men to become so valuable to you that you paid them this much money? And Carnegie replied, men are developed the same way as gold is mined. You see, when gold is mined, several tons of dirt must be moved to get an ounce of gold. But one doesn't go in the mine looking for dirt. one goes in looking for gold. Isn't that powerful? You know, we don't go looking for dirt, we go for looking for the little gold nuggets. Another thing we can do to continue to grow ourselves, you see, when we've added value to ourselves, we become much more valuable to others. And it can be as simple as making time to review and reflect how we're doing. Now, when I talk about taking time to reflect, I'm talking about taking time to reflect each and every day, to pause and think about how to get better at what we do. And it can be anything. Let me give you an example, or let me give you an idea of what I call the reflection starter kit. Now, I promise you, if you answer these 3 questions every day for the next 7 days, you are going to be way more productive. How many want to be more productive in the next 7 days? I'm guessing everybody, right? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions at the end of each day and actually write your answers out on a piece of paper, because there's something powerful that happens when we take the thoughts from our head and we put them down on paper. And I assure you, if you do this, you're going to be so much more effective in the next 7 days. So ask yourself this: what went right, what went wrong, and what can I do differently? What went right, what went wrong, and what can I do differently? Now, I promise you, if you take the time to answer those 3 questions every day, you won't end up keep going around the mulberry bush again and again. Now, this applies to so many different areas in our life. See, here's the thing, because I think it's pretty serious. If we can stop dealing with the same problems in our business, our company, over and over again, we can do this just by taking a little time to reflect every single day. We need to put aside the time or the thought that we're just too busy to do this. You see, I think, people often keep dealing with the same issues inside their office because they refuse to take time to pause and think daily on what it is they're doing. You need to take time to reflect. What went right today? What went wrong today? And what can I do differently tomorrow? So you can grow by taking the time to think as a leader. Lead yourself better, and others will follow. You see, no matter what position, no matter what place you find yourself in today, the biggest thing you can do to make an impact on where you're going to go is your leadership ability. And as I said, leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. You see, at the end of the day, influence is a powerful tool, both inside and outside any organization. Learn to use it effectively to carry out tasks and achieve goals successfully. Don't use it to manipulate for personal gain, but rather exercise it for mutual benefit. See, take a sincere interest in the success of others by connecting with them. How do we do that? Well, first we listen to them, and then we try to understand what it is that's in their heart. See, mastering the art of influence is a powerful way to ensure one's own success. Now, look, it's almost time to land this plane. I'm just about at the end of this presentation, and I've really enjoyed sharing some of the things that I think are going to make the biggest impact on your career, your business, as you learn to become a person of influence. Now, we've briefly touched on how to do that, how to become a person of influence. So what I want you to do is imagine going into a deeper dive into these lessons, maybe in a group setting or individually in a private coaching session. What would happen to you and your business if you took a deeper dive into maximizing your impact and influence with others? What would that do for your personal growth? So as we come to a close, and I'm going to answer some questions if we've got that, what I want you to do is simply fill out a 1-question survey form, and Jenny is going to put the link up for everybody to do that. And the question simply just says this: would you find studying this type of material presented here today help you and your company achieve better results? Yes or no? So I'd love you to fill out that when you get a chance, and then I can get in touch with you and we can see how we can perhaps help each other go further. So I hope the session has added value to you today. I thank you for your attentiveness. Thank you for having me, Jenny, and looking forward to answering some of your questions now.
Hi, Andy, and thanks once again to everybody for joining us on this webinar. You'll see inside the Slido link there that the link for Andy's survey is inside that link on Slido. Also, this is an opportunity now, if you do have any questions that have come out of Andy's presentation, could you please pop those into Slido and we'll feed them through to Andy. Or alternatively, if you don't have any questions at the moment, but you log off from this webinar and you think afterwards, oh, I've got a question I should have asked, please send those through to me at jenny@surveyspatialnz.org, and I can feed them on to Andy for you for a response. So we'll just give it a minute for any of you who may have a question, a live question for Andy to respond to. Okay, Andy, so it doesn't look like we have any questions coming through at the moment. So thank you once again for your time today and for your presentation. It was wonderful. And just a reminder, please, to our attendees again, if you can, please just take a moment to complete that link that was sent through to you for Andy's survey. We'd really appreciate that. So thanks again to everybody, and I hope you all enjoy the nice long weekend this weekend. Bye.
Bye.